My feet hurt. Oh, my feet hurt. God. It's always the last day I'm speaking at RSA, and by then it's, my wife says, why do you do this anymore? Because I love it. I love it. What I got to do is do a disclaimer. Whatever RSA says I did wrong, I probably did. From my disclaimer, this is a work in progress. These are not final answers. These are thinking points about what we're going to talk about, and I'm happy to have discussions on any of it. Just because I'm up here doesn't mean I'm right. It means I am foolish enough to try to get some new ideas going across. Talking about Metawar, and it's a hopefully a little bit of an obvious term, conflict in the metaverse, and the difference between information warfare, cyber warfare. It's all going to get a little bit more murky as we move in to the metaverse, because all the rules are going to change, all the technologies are going to be different, the attack surfaces are going to be different. So I'm going to show you a broad scope view of what the elements are of conflict in the metaverse as we move forward. What's the metaverse? You know, we've all read Wired and Forbes and everything, and there is a complete spectrum of possibilities, and they're all selling us, it's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful, the metaverse. You're going to love it. It will solve all of your problems. It will make your microwave safer. It will do everything for you, and in many cases, I have an awful lot of hope. I was talking to some friends over dinner last night. I said, do you want a surgeon operating on your heart who you're the first one he's ever done, or he did 500 virtual ones with tactile response and actually getting to do things with a simulated human body in the metaverse? There are some tremendous opportunities that are going to occur for practical education, entertainment, and all of those, but I'm not really going to be talking about that. I want to talk about what's going on underneath of it, and is the metaverse going to end up taking us to some sort of dystopian world? And that's certainly a possibility, as every disruptive technology has had that capability for many years. As I frame this, I hope to disturb you a little bit with some of the theses and what can go wrong. This is going to be the metaverse in Saudi Arabia. And that building is, well, that cube is a kilometer on every side. It's going to be $500 to $700 billion, and every single experience inside of it is going to be on some level a metaversal experience, some level of immersion into it. And what Saudi is building a city, what's that, 300 miles long and 50 feet wide or something? Well, this is another one of their visions of the way the future is going to be needing to go. Now, before I get into it all, I just want to point out this is not my first rodeo. 1991, I told Congress that the internet was going to cause a lot of trouble. We were going to lose all sorts of privacy, surveillance capitalism, and then ultimately cyber war and cyber terrorism. And that was over 30 years ago. And I got sort of laughed out of DC for a while, and I was Chicken Little, because they asked me questions that were sort of odd. Why would the bad guys ever use the internet? Was what Congress actually asked me. Versus, why would they not use it? And the same thing, same approach, same type of thinking, I allege is going to happen when we move more and more into the metaverse. I refer to the metaverse not in its current incarnation, but in the incarnations and evolution that will occur over time, that it will be the most powerful reality distortion machine ever created by man. And ultimately, that is the fundamental thing that immersive technology is about. Changing your mind, changing your perception, changing your belief system by using increasingly realistic immersive experiences. And in some cases, I'll show you, you won't even be aware it's happening to you because of the nature of you as a human being and you now as the attack surface in this new world. Metaverse has a long history, despite the way people are positioning it now. Metaverse is about immersion. So let's go back to Homer. Homer talked the Iliad. It was oral tradition. Oral tradition, sitting around a campfire, listening to a story. We've all done it. And you get absorbed. You listen to audiobooks. You get absorbed. You read a book, and you're getting a visual representation of it. One dimension is all that is. That's the visual dimension of the written word. Gilgamesh, done in 1900 BC. That was storytelling and an immersive experience that now has survived for 4 millennia because it is such a powerful story. And powerful stories are immersive regardless of the technology used. So the telephone came along, the first time that we could have a human and a human having a conversation, communication with man-made technology in the middle. Samuel Morse, telegraph, was worried about spying on the telegraph lines and originally wanted everything buried, all the lines buried underneath. No, he lost that one. And so spying on the telegraph and early telephones was as normal as it is today in the world that we live in on the internet. One of the greatest immersional experiences that really messed people's mind was Orson Welles on October 31st, 1938. He was doing the War of the Worlds over the radio, and people in New Jersey became so immersed in the storytelling experience and methodology that he used that they were running in the streets absolutely convinced the Martians were going to be killing people in Otter's Grove, wherever that town is in New Jersey. An amazing example, again, one sense, one-dimensional, only the ear. Radio dramas began in the 1920s and still last today because we have new forms of it and podcasts and what have you. But one dimension, you're listening to the content. Your brain is translating and imagining a perceived reality, whatever that reality is. And it's going to be slightly different for each one of us. But we've been increasing the technology and immersional capabilities all the way from back in the 1920s when tech really started getting going, and today with 8K, 16K, 12K, whatever it is, but we don't have what we call retinal foveated vision, and I'll explain that in a little while, which means that is our visual reality. This we cannot reproduce yet. Apple says 2025, I go, maybe. I just don't believe it's going to be that disruptive in 2 years. But by 2030, we're going to have displays of some sort, whether it's a helmet display, a projection display, a contact lens, something that will give us this visual reality. That is going to be a huge disruption for society, because then I've got at least 2 dimensions of immersion. Sound, because we've perfected binaural sound pretty well, and immersional video. So this brings up the question, the heart of it all. What is reality? Philosophers have been debating that for thousands of years. The Plato's cave, all the prisoners in the cave could see were the shadows of what was going on outside. That was their perceived reality. But outside, there was an entire society merely reflecting a 2-dimensional shadow on the wall of the cave. 2 entirely different sets of reality for the same set of kinetic experiences, identical. So, are we a simulation? That conversation has been had. Are we part of the God Hindu? Is that interpretation correct of what reality is? I don't know. Maybe. It's certainly on the table. And most scientists in this space, some 70%, say it is more likely than not that this is a video game, for lack of any other word. Whether we have free will or not becomes a separate question on down the line. But what we're building is a simulated reality regardless. We're building one that is different than this. And we are over the next 10 and 20 years going to be digitally terraforming a brand new planetary-wide cognitive infrastructure upon which reality will be created by whoever is in charge. Think about that. How much is it going to cost to build a metaverse? 10, 20, $100 billion. Not a whole lot of people and companies are able to do that. Invest in the technologies in order to create an environment which will ultimately make them money, because they're not doing this out of any sort of utopian belief in the community. They're doing it for money. So this new immersional experience, this new reality, we are all going to be moving into it in various forms over a number of years. So today's immersional capability, today's metaverse is merely a step on the curve of the continuum of greater and greater immersional capability, precision, granularity, and the ability to convince you, to absolutely convince you that what you are experiencing is real, if we even know what real is. But that is where we are taking all of this technology. Now, something really interesting pops up when you start looking at how we make our reality. Our reality is really only made of two pieces. One, what we sense around us. 5 senses plus the vestibular balance system. And number two, our experiences and memories. That's it. That is the human experience. That creates belief systems. That creates ersatz realities depending upon your perception. Some of it is intellectual, some of it is religious, some of it may be political. It's an entire spectrum of realities that exist that we are going to be amplifying. Now what happens here, the brain does an amazing amount of stuff. I'm not going to go into all of it, but keep aware of one thing. The unconscious brain does 99.99% of creating our reality, almost 100%. We are only aware using maybe 1,000 bits a second. That's it. So if we've got 4 times 10 to the 11th bits creating reality, unconscious, unaware to us at all, and only 1,000 bits of it we're aware of, I'll let the philosophical implications, let you figure that out for a while, and that'll be part of our discussions later on. This is the new network attack surface. Who's laughing at that? That's the new attack surface. The new attack surface is our senses. It's meant to deceive. It is meant to influence. It is meant to create a belief system that the content orchestrators of what we're perceiving want us to see, want us to believe. Sort of like Penn and Teller want you to believe in magic. David Blaine wants you to believe he can hold his breath for 4 hours. David Copperfield wants you to believe he fell over Niagara Falls. And often we are looking at, holy shit, how do they do that? That's the conscious part of the brain fighting the unconscious part of the brain because it doesn't make sense. The vast majority of what we see as our reality right now is in the past. Somewhere between 250 and 750 milliseconds in the past, because we only see a very small amount of what's about us. It looks like this huge room and we see it and we're in awe of it, but our eyes are only seeing between 1% and 2% of actually what's here. The rest of it's memory. The rest of it is memory being high speed, threaded together to create what we believe is a now. And when you look at the science of the brain, there is no such thing as now. There is only the past. And the meta warriors, people that are looking at this like I am, are going to be able to take advantage of this to create your future realities. So we've got 5 senses, roughly. The vestibular is that the canals in the ear, which makes us dizzy, gives me vertigo. I'm not very good with too many heights. But our 5 senses are what create reality, fundamentally. And 90%